Welcome back to another edition of the Coach's Corner. With me, as always, Clayton Hoford. How's it going today?
Good, my friend. How are you?
Great, man. It's a Friday. Normally, obviously we're on Wednesdays, but hey, even better. It's not hump day. It's Friday. Any fun plans this weekend?
I'm not a very exciting person, unfortunately.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm pretty much the same way. But today we will be previewing the AFC West, the favorite division of a lot of people on the show. One Clayton Hoford also. So I guess to start, we'll kind of review some of the key signings each team made. A couple, going into the draft a little bit, and then seeing how the roster will shake out for our depth chart. That is, will shake out for each team. And then lastly, we'll kind of predict where we think each team might finish. So starting with the Clayton Hoford Broncos, obviously they acquired Teddy Bridgewater from the Carolina Panthers to compete with Drew Lock for that starting job. Other key signings, you could say, Kyle Fuller was obviously a pretty key one. Franchise tagging Justin Simmons, and then obviously signs the deal. And then picking up the team option for Kareem Jackson and Von Miller were obviously all pretty key signings. But what do you feel as a Broncos fan was your favorite move this offseason made by the Broncos? Draft or free agency?
The draft was okay. I think that ultimately the Justin Simmons getting a deal done or making progress towards a new deal is probably what was the best made. It's easy to say Teddy Bridgewater for competition, but how much better is Teddy actually going to be than Drew Lock? So what's the actual upgrade here? What are you truly gaining? And I like Teddy. Drew obviously has the higher ceiling. Teddy is safer play, but neither guy running away with the job. That's troublesome. When you bring a guy in to compete, you kind of hope that one rises to the other, and it's still pretty blocked, over the course of practices. And I don't think that's good. I don't think that's good that one guy just can't run away with the job. I don't think it's good that one guy's not rising to the occasion. So Justin Simmons is one of the premier safeties in the league. A lot of people may not know his name because he's not played for great teams so far during his young NFL career. But the fact is, he keeps getting better every year, and he's always highly ranked on PFF. He just does a really great job, and playing his position, and he's top 3 safety in the league. So keeping him around is big for the no fly zone 2.0 they're trying to build.
Yeah, for sure, and that's why my favorite move by the Broncos, and we'll get more into why it's my favorite move when we kind of preview the depth chart. And how it might shake out was, I could piggyback off you and say Justin Simmons because I really like that. I also like bringing back Kareem Jackson for another year because they obviously drafted 2 safeties in Caden Stearns and Jamar Johnson, both players I actually really like. But it's a toss-up for me between Patrick Surtain, which, Vic Fangio and his defensive backs, being a Vikings fan, Mike Zimmer and his defensive backs. But it's between that and getting Kyle Fuller, because now you could say Vic Fangio made Bryce Callahan, when healthy, who Bryce Callahan is, being one of the better slot corners in the game. And now you bring Kyle Fuller in that already knows Vic Fangio's system, which, there might be a few different nuances that they added in Denver that they didn't have in Chicago. But bringing in a guy who already knows 90% of your scheme is huge and has that relationship with the head coach, and a guy that can really, you could say mentor Patrick Surtain. Patrick Surtain talked about, he is pretty well prepared from playing at Alabama, but he also understands he hasn't made it yet. He's a rookie. He hasn't played a single NFL game yet. And I think that speaks volumes to his character and his work ethic, and being able to learn from a defensive coach in Vic Fangio, but also some of those veteran players like a Simmons or a Kareem Jackson or a Kyle Fuller, Bryce Callahan is huge. What was your least favorite move by the Broncos?
The Patrick Surtain draft pick.
I know.
And that catches people off guard, but it's you go out and you spend 3 year or you sign Ronald Darby to a 3-year, $30 million deal. Recently we went out and we got Bryce Callahan. Go out and get Kyle Fuller on a 1-year, $9.5 million deal with $9 million guaranteed. Who's the fourth guy? Or out of those three, out of Callahan, Fuller, and Darby, and Surtain, who's the fourth guy? You're telling me your fourth cornerback's going to make $10 million a year, maybe? That's preposterous. And you passed on Justin Fields, you passed on Mac Jones, guys that you could have had. You passed on trading up, and you're going to add to an already crowded quarterback room. And there's rumors going around that was a Green Bay guy that they wanted, so it was going to be in a package for Aaron Rodgers. And then they go draft Eric Stokes. So now you look doubly dumb if that was truly the case. So there's not one thing where I look at it and I go, oh, yeah, Patrick Surtain. He could be a great player, but when evaluating the whole offseason, you sit there and you go, well, why in the hell do we do the rest of the stuff we did if we're going to draft Patrick Surtain? How many cornerbacks do we need? We're weak on the defensive line. This isn't a great defensive line class. Okay, go out and find somebody in free agency or make a trade that way. Von Miller and Bradley Chubb have both shown that they can't stay healthy. So instead of adding a pass rusher one way or another with that free agency money, you don't do that. You don't address it via the draft either. It's baffling. And they say that was their number one player on the board, in press release. That makes me feel even more uncomfortable. Like, who did you have him graded above? I want to see the rest of the top 5 because I'm a little worried.
I think everyone's number one rated player probably should have been Trevor Lawrence, knowing they weren't going to get Trevor Lawrence. But
yeah, you at least put him down.
Exactly.
You at least put him down, on the board.
Exactly. If it was realistically who's probably going to fall to us, I could maybe buy it where Denver was picking. But to say he's your number one overall player on the board before the draft even starts is, you could say, a little concerning for sure. But for me, my least favorite move isn't really what they did. It's what they didn't do. Like you were saying, they were, a little weak on the D-line. I really like Jarrell Casey. I know he's getting up there in age. But knowing that it wasn't a very deep interior D-line class, and there wasn't a whole lot of top-end talent in free agency, I think it would have been very important for them to bring him in. Like, I like, some of the moves that they made as far as the back end of the defense, obviously defensive backfield, bringing in linebacker Baron Browning out of Ohio State. I know he went up boards pretty quickly. Those are all good moves, but, I really think that they should have brought back Jarrell Casey on some sort of deal that made sense for both sides. I think it was very important that they ended up bringing back Shelby Harris, because I think if you lose Shelby Harris and you lose Jarrell Casey, that's a huge hole in your D-line. And they were already – I don't want to say that Denver was necessarily weak again at the linebacker position. They were against the pass, but, their linebackers play the run very well. So it would have taken the strength of their defense against the run and made it worse, because really you're relying on those 3D linemen to keep the linebackers free to make plays in the running game. Is kind of the way Fangio sets his scheme up, and most defensive coordinators set their scheme up, going clear back to Tom Landry with the flex defense, where you'd literally have a D end on the line, your D tackle off the line, your other D tackle on the line, and your other D end off the line to create that flex to try to keep the middle linebacker free. Dropping a little old school knowledge on the viewers today. But going into now the depth chart, what battles do you think are going to be the most interesting to see play out for the Denver Broncos?
Well, I already touched on it. The cornerbacks. That's number one. Who emerges is, there's really no way out of looking foolish. Either you overpaid a guy to be your fourth best cornerback on your team, or you overdrafted a guy that's not going to play up right away. You never see a guy that's drafted in the top 15 not get to play, right? We're just not accustomed to seeing something like that. So there's a very real possibility Surtain is the fourth guy. Also a very real possibility Surtain is the number one guy. We don't really know how he's going to adjust. You can't believe everything you see coming out of camp, because, of course, team reporters aren't going to say, wow, Patrick Surtain looks like he's struggling. Surtain's teammates aren't going to come out and say, wow, looks like Surtain is struggling. They're going to hype the guy up. They're going to build his confidence. Obviously, the quarterback battle as well looks pretty interesting. If you had to ask me who I think is gonna come out on top, I think it's gonna be Drew Lock. If you were gonna ask me who I want to come out on top, it's Teddy Bridgewater. It's two different things. I think Teddy is better for the team. I think Teddy's the better quarterback. I think Drew Lock has the higher potential. He also has the highest draft capital in relation to the team. So they're obviously going to try to give him one more shot. There's going to be another red check mark.
Yeah, for me.
And involved in the draft process. So go ahead.
For me, going off what you said with the quarterback position, I think that Teddy Bridgewater is the better option, because Teddy Bridgewater had great weapons in Carolina, but he didn't have an offensive line to protect him. I would take the Denver O-line over the Carolina O-line any day. So he finally has the protection and he has the weapons. And we all know that Teddy Bridgewater has played for defensive-minded coaches, basically outside of Sean Payton his entire career. Or I guess Adam Gase too, for the short time with the Jets. But Mike Zimmer's a defensive-minded head coach. Vic Fangio obviously is a defensive-minded head coach, and so is the Carolina Panthers' Matt Rule, defensive-minded guy. And so he understands that the strength in Minnesota was always the defense when he played there, and he's going to understand that the strength in Denver is the defense as well. So you want to play to your strength, being the defense. You're not going to turn the ball over. That's one thing. Teddy Bridgewater is not going to throw for 30 touchdowns in a season. He's just not going to, but he's also not going to throw for, throw more picks than he does touchdowns. It's just, that's not in his DNA. So I agree with you. I think that the quarterback position will be an interesting one to watch. I think the right tackle kind of battle, really the right side of the offensive line. Bobby Massey, I think, is penciled in as a starter, but, Fleming could, I think, compete with him for that job. I think that Bobby Massey is going to win it. But then Quinn Meinerz versus, you could say, Lloyd Cushenberry. I know they both play center. I really like Lloyd. I think that, maybe Quinn Meinerz can beat out Graham Glasgow. Don't count out Nathani Mooney either. Both those guys I really enjoy watching. And then lastly, I think at middle linebacker, I think Baron Browning can compete with Alexander Johnson and Josie Jewell for time in the middle of that defense. Any final thoughts on Denver?
Yeah, I think if Aaron's going to compete for a spot, it'll be with Josie Jewell. I think Alexander Johnson's pretty locked in. I think a drop off in play is kind of apparent just from an athletic standpoint too. Josie Jewell, I know that's your boy and all that. He's done a good job. He's been a solid player, but and honestly, I think Josie Jewell might hang on to the spot. But I think if that's going to be a battle, I think that's the guy because Alexander Johnson played at a relatively high level for the defense last year, and that's a lot to highlight too because that's a weak point of the defense right now too is just that middle. That middle linebacker, that middle of the defensive line. It's not a great area. It's not a great strength for the defense right now. So overall, you look at Denver and you say this team that if things go right and they could figure it out on offense, Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Albert O. Like you've got all Melvin Gordon, Devontae Williams, all kinds of things. If you can just figure out how to score consistently, and we're not talking 30, talk 20 points. If you hang 20 consistently, just as an average, 17 to 20, that defense is going to get it done. It's going to be tough, but you have to find a way to score the football. And that's something they've really been shut out. It's like the end zone had COVID because one part of it. Just the way they refuse to score, and our offensive coordinators have failed to really attack and scheme. Looks like. I mean, it's been borderline embarrassing at times. So whichever quarterback is going to do the job, hopefully play at a high level. Ultimately, I wish Drew Lock could figure it out and he could sling. For the rest of the guys in the division, this division's kind of loaded. I mean, Herbert, Mahomes, and Carr. Those guys are obviously pretty good. They can hang points, right? It's their defenses that keep letting them down. So it's time for the Broncos to get the program. They can't be the team that's relying on defense to put up more points in the offense. This isn't that legendary Super Bowl 50 team. It's just not. No matter how bad Denver fans want it to be, it's not going to be that again. We'll probably never see that in the NFL again, just dominating on a defensive side like that. So you got to get the program. The offense has to find a way to score points. And honestly, it's not that hard. Just throw it up. Cortland Sutton will come down with it. I'll put more money. I'll win more money if I bet on it. I lose that Cortland Sutton can with that football.
Yeah, I mean Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Tim Patrick. That's not. I mean, even including Seth Williams, which I like coming out of Auburn, Tyree Cleveland, speedster. There's a lot of talent in that wide receiver room. Very, very deep indeed. Up next, we have Fidel's Las Vegas Raiders. Obviously, looking at a couple of the various moves they have made. I think some notable ones, waiving Mo Hurst and Arden Key, both guys that they drafted. I think signing Colton Miller to that 3-year extension, signing Willie Snead, re-signing Richie Incognito, but then releasing Tyrell Williams and pretty much getting rid of their entire whole line outside of Colton Miller and Richie Incognito. There was a lot of moves, and a lot of them were out of necessity because of cap situations. But what was your favorite move by the Raiders, either in the draft or in free agency?
Oof. Man, the best move's got to be on Yannick Ngakoue. I mean, that's a big time move for them because he's a big defensive piece on a defense that can stop a running. So, the other issues you can point out, I think that getting a big time player like that to be disruptive, I think that's going to pay dividends down the road, especially with adding young guys and the mix of guys. I think he'll really help bring things together.
Yeah, for me, I think it's Trevin Moehrig. I think that they were really looking for that deep safety. I know they moved on from what's his name? He played for the Rams, and then LaMarcus Joyner, I think. Is that his name? Yeah. He was a free safety.
I don't know where you're going with it.
The name does. They needed the deep safety. Abrams is an in the box safety. Carl Joseph is an in the box safety. They needed somebody to play deep to help out Arnett, Mullins, and Amik Robertson at the corner position. And they really didn't have that guy. So getting a guy like Trevin Morig is key to that defense. And you know what? If Alex Leatherwood was their guy, if that was Tom Cable's guy, so be it. Okay, they got the guy that their offensive line coach felt was going to help them solidify the right tackle position. I know a lot of Raiders fans were like, what are we doing? Because they could have gotten my guy that the Vikings got. But instead they went with Alex Leatherwood. And if that was Tom Cable's guy, that was Tom Cable's guy. If it works out, people are going to talk about it being a genius move. If it doesn't, it was a boneheaded move by the Raiders. Do you have any least or the move you like the least by the Raiders?
Well, real quick, talking about Tom Cable. Tom Cable looks like Thanos, and instead of collecting Infinity Stones, he's collecting offensive linemen. The fact that they would at least listen to him on who he wants and make his own decision on who he wants to play on his offensive line, I would laugh him out of the room, because you look at what he did in Seattle with Russell Wilson and made him run for his life, and you sit there and you go, yeah, Tom, we're going to listen to what you have to say about offensive line play, because clearly he did so good with Russ. I mean, yeah, Russ runs around a lot, and he had the league in sacks one year whenever he was there, but is that his fault that he's having to run and scramble? That tells me that the offensive line isn't very good if he's having to scramble every play and the pocket has to be moved all the time. So, you bring up, if Tom Cable likes Alex Leatherwood, should that not be a warning sign that maybe we shouldn't take Alex Leatherwood, because Coach Cable, man, he's not really great at hand-picking him, because, remember, that's what he used to do in Seattle. Always an injury. Coach Cable likes this guy, and he would be horrible for them across the years that he was there. So, if I'm a Raiders fan, I'm not super thrilled if that's the report, Hey,
I tell you what, man.
Least favorite.
I tell you what, man. I really trust that Tom Cable, man.
Least favorite signing? I mean, Kenyon Drake isn't great. I mean, yeah, you had a 1-2 punch, but you just drafted Josh Jacobs in the first round not too long ago, and you're already worried about his long-term health. You're worried about him staying healthy. He touched the ball more. I don't know what they're thinking. Kenyon Drake is a good player, but it's like, and you obviously want on every position, but that's kind of baffling. And Willie Snead, Zay Jones, John Brown, they have a niche. Okay, they've all found their spot, their roles on teams doing one thing. That's going deep. Derek Carr struggled to do what? And over his tenure with the Raiders, that's go deep. So really pushing this narrative. Hey, Derek, we want to go deep. But if the quarterback has unwillingness, that is, he's going to pull the trigger on those deep ball throws, he's still not going to go deep. He's still going to hit the underneath crosser route as a check down. So they're wasting money on wide receivers at this point, unless the ultimate plan is to move on and find another quarterback that's going to go deep. Because, like I said, it could be a scheme thing all day long, but the quarterback's still going to do whatever he's most comfortable. You could yell and say it was there, and he could sit there and say, I didn't feel it like it was. And he's right, because it's what he feels at the time. He's the guy pulling the trigger. He's the guy running the show. He's the maestro.
Real quick, I double-checked the name. That was annoying me. It is LaMarcus Joyner. I got it right. For the record, not that it matters. But Yeah, I agree with you. I was actually going to bring up the Raiders and the speed they have at the wide receiver position. John Brown, speed. Zay Jones, speed. Henry Ruggs, speed. You have your reliable hands guy with good old Hunter Renfrow. Even Darren Waller brings speed at the tight end position. So yeah, I mean it's all speed. But honestly, my least favorite moves were honestly releasing Mo Hurst. Arden Key I can live with. You signed Yannick the Freak Ngakwe. Okay, you're still waiting to see something out of Cleveland Farrell, but because you picked them so high, you're going to give them all the chances in the world to live up to that draft pick. But yeah, then you also have my guy Max Crosby, man. Those sleeves are deadly. So and then I think they were able to actually get Solomon Thomas, who I know was another high draft pick by Ned's 49ers, but I know they're moving him inside, but you're able to get him on a very friendly deal. I think he was always a guy that was kind of a tweener. Is he an interior, a lighter 3 technique that's quick, or is he a defensive end? And maybe his home's at the 3 tech, and the Raiders get the steal of free agency. Maybe not. Who knows? But I think getting rid of Mo Hurst was a mistake. If I'm not mistaken, he was still on his rookie deal. I don't know if there was other stuff kind of going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. But yeah, for a while I know he was playing really, really good football. I don't watch a whole lot of Raiders games. Sorry, Fidel. And then isn't Terrian a Raiders fan as well?
He is.
Yeah, sorry, Terrian. I don't watch a whole lot of your Raiders, buddy. But yeah, I mean, which battle do you think is going to be your favorite to watch as far as the depth chart plays out?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably the wide receivers to see how that shakes out. I mean, where does Henry Ruggs fall? Again, this is kind of like what we just asked with Denver. This is a thing where you look and you say he was the highest drafted wide receiver a year ago. Where does he fall in line with John Brown, Willie Snead, obviously Hunter Renfrow? We know, they're focused on tight end with Darren Waller. He's a phenomenal talent, but John Brown's a very good wide receiver. So you look at him and say, does he kind of usurp Henry Ruggs? Does he move as the wide receiver 1 he was in Buffalo, and Ruggs takes a backseat to him? And then you look at Willie Snead, a guy who's kind of been a wide receiver 2, 3. He's played with some quarterbacks. He's played with Lamar. He's played with Drew Brees. So where does he fall in it? Hunter Renfrow as well. So I think there's a lot of questions there. And you look at something's got to give. Either Henry Ruggs is continuously your deep threat, so he's going to be the wide receiver 3, or he's going to turn into a more well-rounded wide receiver as they use him. And he is going to be your best wide receiver on the field.
For me personally, I agree with you with wide receiver. There's certainly a lot of talent in that wide receiver room. For me, it's defensively. There's a lot defensively. I do believe the offensive line is wide open. Outside of really Incognito and Colton Miller, I think it's wide open. I'm not going to say that Alex Leatherwood's necessarily a lock week 1 to start. I mean, I would think so, but center, I don't think that they really have a lock at center between Andre James, Nick Martin, and Jimmy Morrissey. And I don't think at right guard they really have a lock. I think it could be Denzel Good. It could be Lester Cotton. It could be John Simpson, kind of duking it out, all for those spots. But also, as I mentioned, Solomon Thomas now is an interior defensive lineman battling it out with Quentin Jefferson for the 3 tech. I really don't think that Solomon Thomas is a nose tackle. I think that's Jonathan Hankins' job to lose at this point. But also, I got to keep an eye on is Darius Stills out of West Virginia. He was a college free agent who can also battle for that spot. Then, want to talk about linebacker. I mean, they have a lot of money tied up with Corey Littleton and also their Mike linebacker. So, can a guy like Divine Diablo battle with Corey Littleton? And if he beats out Corey Littleton, do you cut him? I know that was a big signing for them a couple of years ago, but you have a lot of money tied up in them. And I know you got rid of a lot of offensive linemen. You reworked Incognito's deal to save you some money. But, the next phase is defense. They have a lot of money tied up defensively with Hankins, Jefferson, obviously Yannick Ngakoue, Corey Littleton. A lot of money tied up in those guys. And then you get to the safety position, as I mentioned. You have Jonathan Abrams, who you drafted, Carl Joseph, who you drafted, spent a year in Cleveland and came back. They're both the same type of safety. They're both strong safeties, in the box safeties, if you will. So there's a lot of various battles I think that you could see play out throughout the course of camp. Obviously, it's still really early to see how all of them are going to play out. Any final thoughts for the Raiders? All right, moving on.
The Raiders is a team that, the rubber's starting to meet the road.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you. I think that they're finally starting to, in a way, go on the right track, but I feel like they're taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. They're not making really the strides that you'd like. Is that the same way you feel about them?
Yeah. It's just, at what point do you say, all right, we've given this rebuild a chance to see some results? Because I feel like everybody gets younger in the past, but with everything that comes out, with him fighting with Mayock and Mayock making his interesting draft selections, whether those are his or Gruden's, something's got to give, and it's time to see results. Rebuild should be done in the course of 3 years. Start seeing really, really positive results, and they've gotten some big wins, but where are the consistent wins?
Exactly. Consistency is key. Now going on to we got the LA Chargers. Still weird calling them the LA Chargers, but obviously Corey Linsley, you could say, was probably the big signing here. It basically redid their entire O-line because they needed to. That was a huge hole for them last year. I'm surprised that Herbert played as well as he did behind such a bad O-line. Obviously, Rashawn Slater, first-round pick, left tackle. Corey Linsley's your center. You signed Matt Filer from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Brian Bulaga is coming back as your right tackle. There's still some question marks, I'd say, at left guard. But really the highlight I wouldn't say necessarily the highlight, but the focus was on rebuilding that offensive line. What was your favorite move by the Chargers?
Maybe an unpopular opinion, but probably signing Jared Cook, because I feel like they're putting a lot on Herbert's plate of, hey, you did a lot, but you also had, a lot of weapons here. And so they let Hunter Henry walk. They didn't go get another wide receiver. It seems like they're content to roll with Keenan Allen, who I think is good. I know Mike Williams is coming up. He needs a contract soon. But, Hunter Henry, he opened up the middle of the field. I think Jared Cook is going to be a good option for them game. Obviously not as great of a blocker as Hunter Henry, but, he's going to be a good target for a young quarterback looking for a safety valve.
Yeah, my favorite thing by far is this new look defense under Brandon Staley. Obviously, he was the LA Rams defensive coordinator last year. The Rams under McVay going clear back to Wade Phillips, have been a multiple front team. And I think that Brandon Staley did a great job of kind of keeping that look and getting the most out of that Rams defense. But I think my favorite move was probably Rashawn Slater. I know that's easy to say. But the reason why it's my favorite is because you're finally not waiting till the second and third round, fourth round to draft offensive linemen. They did it multiple times. And now all those guys are gone because hardly any of them ended up working out. And so, obviously you weren't going to probably spend your top 3 picks on offensive linemen. So, you know what? Let's take the best center in the league with Corey Linsley, and let's find a competent guard that we can sign in Filer. And I think that my favorite moves, plural, was the offensive line. What was your least favorite move by the Chargers?
I've probably got to double down and say just letting Henry walk. He's been a reliable target for them. He's put up some good numbers. That's a guy that's played with Phillip Rivers, so Phillip took him under his wing. And he's a very good resource for a young quarterback to have that with. And like I said, the blocking of them getting more true running back depth. I think Austin Eckler sees him as like Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, and he's not that. I mean, he can't be on the field, and I think that's a big deal. I think that Austin Eckler needs he's more of a Phillip Lindsay light. Maybe even that's the best I can give. Sproul, Chargers fan, Sproul, somebody that goes in, gives talk the offense, made a big play out of nothing. But it's not a guy you give 25 carries a game to or 25 touches to. He can't withstand it. So no running back support, and I don't like either moves.
I was going to point to the running backs too. Eckler can't stay healthy. I like Justin Jackson as kind of a spillback, but I don't really like him as a starter. Same thing with Joshua Kelly. I think that all those guys, Eckler, Jackson, and Kelly are going to have to really, really share the load evenly this coming fall. But for me, it's, fine if you want to let, what's his name? They let Melvin Ingram walk. Sorry. I was blanking on the name. Melvin Ingram walk, who, you had paired up with Bosa. Bosa, the name speaks for itself as far as edge rushers are concerned. But you don't bring in anybody to help bolster that edge. You know what I mean? And it's getting to the point where in football, quarterback's obviously always going to be the number one position of importance. You got to have a good quarterback. For a while, if you take the blindside approach, it was you got to pay for the insurance, so you got to get the left tackle. I think it's more so shifting to getting an edge rusher. Who's somebody who can just wreak havoc, on the opposing team's quarterback. Because let's face it, defensive ends are way more athletic than offensive tackles. I mean, generally speaking, a guy like Tristan Wirfs is crazy athletic. You take Penny Sewell, crazy athletic. But an edge guy, by trait now, is just an athlete. I'm sure that there are probably guys that you coach as well as I do that, they're not really this, they're not really that, but they're an athlete. You put them at the defensive end position, and you're like, okay, find ball, make play, don't let anyone outside of you. Keep contained, find ball, and make the play. And a lot of the times they use their raw athleticism to do exactly what I just said. Keep contained, find the ball, make the play. And it just kind of astonishes me that they didn't make any effort towards really replacing Melvin Ingram. So now, if I'm a team, it's like, yeah, it's Joey Bosa. You're gonna have your hands full with them, but it's not like they have a guy on the other side that you're really fearing by any means. I know you have Tillery in the middle. You have Linval Joseph in the middle. But there's not that edge guy that really makes you feel threatened on both sides, I guess is what I'm trying to say. What is your favorite camp battle that you think that'll play out as far as the depth chart's concerned for the Chargers?
To see, I'm kind of interested to see where for their cornerbacks. I want to see where Chris Harris falls in line. That's a guy that they re-signed or that they signed from the Broncos. Was hurt a lot last year, but while he was on the field, he did not look like Chris Harris that was with the Broncos. Actually, one of the few things that went right for the Broncos is that they were correct in saying, "Hey, man, we'd love to keep you here, but you're not playing at the same high level to warrant the money that you're going to get on the open market or you're asking." Obviously, Chargers needed a little depth, so they offered paying. And Harris in the front office of the Broncos had kind of been going back and forth with the money because he did take a pay cut. The time was kind of difficult. So I definitely think it was a bad blood signing of, hey, I'm going to play my old team 2 times a year. But he was hurt one game, didn't even get to play, and the other one he didn't exactly light it up against it. So I'm interested to see where he falls. I want to see how those cornerbacks. What was once a major strength Chargers organization, back when they had Verrett and Casey Hayward, if I'm not mistaken, that's not so much their strength anymore. Their pass coverage isn't great. So I am very interested to see where they end up playing guys over the course of the preseason and to start opening day.
Yeah, there are 2 real positions I'm going to point at. First, as you mentioned, the defensive backfield as a whole. Can Derwin James stay healthy? Can Nasir Adderley? I think that those are both 2 very talented safeties. But can they stay healthy? They haven't shown that they've been able to stay healthy, and they have really nobody behind them. That's worth noting. But hey, that's the NFL. You make a name for yourself, But I like the Asante Samuel Jr. pick just because I think he was a very scheme-oriented corner, and I think that he fits that scheme that Staley's going to want to run. But outside of that, Michael Davis really was the reason why Desmond King didn't see the field. That was probably one of my least favorite, actually, was when that goes back to last year, though, when they traded Desmond King. But my other one is wide receiver 3. You draft Josh Palmer, the speedster and big body receiver from Tennessee, but college free agent Jalen Guyton and Tyron Johnson both really impressed last year because I think Keenan Allen and Mike Davis both missed time due to injury. And it was either Herbert making them look good or they're actually really good, and I think that's a little bit of both. And then KJ Hill. I know KJ Hill had a great career at Ohio State, but is he going to be yet another Ohio State wide receiver that doesn't pan out in the NFL? Who knows? Maybe. Those would be my favorite camp battles to watch. Any final thoughts on the Chargers? Are you ready to move on to last but certainly not least, the Kansas City Chiefs? So KC,
the only thing I have to say is, you just hope Herbert moves forward positively, that he doesn't stall.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yes, for sure. Last but certainly not least, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. Big O-line overhaul. What we talked about it with obviously the Raiders. I think that one thing that they that Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy probably watched during the Super Bowl was, wow, we need to get better on the offensive line. Granted, your starting 2 tackles were hurt. So let's trade for Big Orlando Brown, which, he's played well in this league at right tackle. We'll see if he transitions over to left tackle. I believe he played mostly right tackle at Oklahoma too. I might be wrong on that. I could be wrong on that. But at least in the NFL, he has played primarily right tackle. So, we'll see if there's a big shift with him moving to left tackle. I love Jumpin' Joe Thuney at left guard. Austin Blythe at center. I know Kyle Long's been hurt, but I guess you could probably pencil in at right guard. But you could also maybe see Creed Humphrey work his way in there, or maybe even Trey Smith, who they drafted. So the big theme again here was certainly offensive line. What was your favorite move though?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. Probably the Orlando Brown trade. You're not gonna get a quality player like that on the offensive line that late that has his pedigree. So to go ahead and just do that they did for whatever you were probably gonna get, like I said, tackles. To the tackles that were being around there were still some good talent on board, but to go ahead and get a proven guy like that, you can't mess up that trade.
Yeah, exactly. I think that, Orlando Brown's essentially a first-round talent, so I want to say maybe essentially they gave up a third-round pick for Orlando Brown. I think it's safe to say that basement ceiling to type deal. You're essentially trading a first-round pick for a first-round talented offensive lineman who's proven, and what I think it was a third rounder, maybe. I don't remember the exact details of the trade. I know it wasn't much. I was hoping my Vikings would actually possibly make a move. I'm happy that they ended up with Christian Darrisaw. But my favorite move was probably trying to be different here. I will go with Nick Bolton. I think Nick Bolton was a great pick because Anthony Hitchens, my boy from Iowa, is getting up there in age, a little bit. And I really like Willie Gay I think he went to Mississippi State. And now you have Nick Bolton and Willie Gay, a very, very young linebacking core that you can really rely on, I think, for years to come. So I'm going to go with Nick Bolton for my favorite. What was your least favorite?
Oh. Letting Sammy Watkins go. I'm not a fan of letting Sammy Watkins go because Sammy Watkins is a guy that, he's had some health issues and some other things. You look at the numbers he's put up and the stress he puts on a defense. Not replacing him officially is kind of a big deal because this isn't. Everybody thinks of him as a big play guy, such, but Sammy Watkins, dude, that's a guy that can go up and make a play too. He's a matchup nightmare as well because obviously if you don't put a talented secondary guy on him or a guy big enough to cover him, Mahomes is just gonna recognize that you're gonna get out jumped because again he's an athlete, he's a freak. So I think the Sammy Watkins loss is going to be felt. They'll move on, they'll recover. It's Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, but still, yet I think that we shouldn't expect the stupid video game because they didn't really find placement in him.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why they ended up changing the way their offensive line looks. I think that part of the moves that they've made, literally outside of Mike Remmers, there isn't a single, at least penciled in starter on the offensive line that played in that Super Bowl. And I wouldn't feel comfortable with Mike Remmers being my right tackle, to be completely honest with you. I've been there, done that with the Vikings. I wouldn't be comfortable with it. I think that there's still an outside shot. I don't believe Fisher or Schwartz have been signed by anyone yet. I know Schwartz is kind of rumored to be leaning more towards retirement, but I wouldn't go against a return and just be like, well, Orlando Brown wants to play left tackle. That's why he wanted out of Baltimore. I mean, Baltimore's offense is an offensive lineman's dream for how much you're run blocking. Offensive linemen love the run block. They'll pass that. They'll protect their quarterback, but They love being violent and run blocking. So it was definitely because he wanted to play left tackle. To play left tackle, there's certain pride in playing left tackle over right tackle. But also left tackle money is also a big factor in it. So if they bring back Fisher, I think they'll kick him to the right side. But I think that, you know, I think that going to what you were saying with passing the ball, I think that they shifted the way their offensive line looked to run the ball more with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They'll still pass the ball because they still have Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, McCole Hardman, and company. But I think that, you know, all these running backs are essentially the same. Now, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the most talented, but Jerick McKinnon is a guy who can run the ball and catch the ball. Elijah McGuire can run the ball and catch the ball. Darwin Thompson can run the ball and catch the ball. Darrell Williams can run the ball and catch the ball. So they're still going to be the Chiefs. They're still going to make crazy plays on offense, but I think they're going to try to make more of an effort towards running the football and taking a little bit of pressure off Patrick Mahomes. Next segment, we previewed that was our least favorite move. What is your what camp battle are you looking forward to most?
We need to see who the wide receiver 2 is going to be. We need to see who the backup running back is going to be. Clyde Helaire can't, like we keep talking, he's a dude that's supposed to touch it 25 times a game. So, is Eric McColl? Is it going to be Darrell Williams or is Darwin Thompson? We've seen some flashes from him in limited action. And so, you know, that was a guy they raved about just a couple years ago. And then what did they do? They turn around and draft Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And then, you know, right now your wide receiver 2 is McCole Hardman. He's not a guy that's shown that he's got it all put together in terms of being a well-rounded wide receiver. He's just really, really fast. Demarcus Robinson, kind of the same thing. So do they have a number 2 guy? You know, I think that's something interesting to watch.
Well, I think
have to try to sign somebody if they know about Tyreek, about Kelly.
Well, that is going to do it for this week's edition of the Coach's Corner. Coach's Corner is presented by Lamb of God Designs. Go to lambofgod.faith and use promo code #EastWest for 10% off your order. And the Thrive Fantasy app, the best way to play fantasy. Thanks. We'll see you next week on the Coach's Corner.